The Wide Awakening presents the Break Free Workshop, an introduction to get out of your own way to a thriving body. And now, here is author, speaker, and awakening coach, Jennifer Hough.
So here's someone who asked a question. She said, I know your time is very precious, but I wonder if you could spare a moment during the webinar, during the workshop, to address a topic of energetic grounding, healthy lower chakras, and how it affects our capacity to hear our inner guidance. And also how grounding may or may not assist in bringing our heart's calling into a material 3D world. So first, we have to make sure that we have the same. So this is an interesting conversation around grounding. So everything I talked about today is in a whole new world of awakening. The concepts and tools that we use are metaphysical tools that came to me through a series of channeled sessions. So the concept of grounding is not something that we actually work. We would rather have you be open. However, in the definition of grounding, what I'm going to use is a different word, okay? The word is that you're desplintered, that you're fully integrated. So instead of grounding, which is a concept from other kinds of work that we get taught, we're going to unicorn this, because if we use the word grounding, too many people have too many preconceptions of what that means. We're going to use a new word because it means something different. To actually end being pulled by the shoulds, musts, and have tos that we've been taught, like, oh, mommy, I'm really upset. You know, somebody hurt me at school. And then in the back of your mind is, oh my God, I have to solve that. I'm such a bad mother. Why do they feel bad? Or your husband's looking for a job or your wife is looking for a job and they really need a job and they're having such a struggle and you're worried about that. Or we get pulled by the government is doing all these crazy things and we get pulled. Sometimes we don't even know that we're being pulled. That's called being splintered. It's like splintering all your energies off, trying to micromanage the universe. And I have news for you. There already is a general manager of the universe and you're not it, and it wants its job back, okay? So what we want to do is we want to actually let all that stuff be outside of us and disconnected from us. And then we bring back all the splintered pieces of ourselves such that we could be fully present in the moment. Bringing back all the splintered pieces of yourself is different than grounding. It's got more exponential oomph to it, because that means you're bringing back innate abilities that the resources have been used for stuff out there. So if I ask the question differently, how grounding may or may not assist in bringing our heart's calling into the material 3D world. Here's something about bringing our heart's calling into the 3D world that's just so crucial. Our heart's calling is already being done by you. You are already doing your heart's calling. It's so funny when we do the program Flight School, okay? Flight School is like the next step from Get Out of Your Own Way. Flight School is a year-long immersion in embodying all that you are and why you're here, right? So if anyone wants to do Flight School or hear more about it, you've got to Get Out of Your Way first. So, but bringing that purpose to fruition, just think about what part of us, we get a little anxious about, I got to get on with it. I got to get on with it. Well, there's this exercise in Flight School that I want to share with you right now that it's so powerful. And I just remember being in Mont Tremblant with last year's group, and we were sitting around the table and we were having this most amazing conversation we're talking about each other's gifts. And of course I threw a monkey wrench into the conversation. This is one of those right brain, left brain, new aha experiences. Actually, me talking about desplintering yourself and fully integrating versus grounding is one of those other, it's like a deeper understanding, right? So the same thing happened around this table as we were talking about what are your gifts, i.e. what is your purpose? What's your piece of the puzzle of heaven on earth? Who are you? Why are you here? And each person got to tell one person after spending 6 months with them already who they are and what they see. And the monkey wrench I threw into the middle was, how about we stop looking for our gifts? And how about we start saying you are the gift? You see, because it became very apparent that you're already being the gift that you are. And that is your heart's calling. Your heart's calling is not the career you have or the job you have. That's how people take themselves off track. And so they splinter themselves, again, splintering, by looking for the thing that would be the one thing that's really their heart's expression when you're already doing it. As we went around the table, there was one woman, Glenda, she might even be here today, and we had this great conversation around, she just is the love, and her superpower is the love that she emanates. She affects everybody. She just is this unconditional being, but she had grown up very having to pursue, like achieving goals or having it be this very linear direction of how you get to the place where you do what you're supposed to do. And she became a physiotherapist. And she followed people with very linear models. Meanwhile, she's just like a heart with legs. And that the answers will come to her as long as she bees the gift that she is, which is a heart with legs. And it wouldn't matter if she was a grocery bagger or a physiotherapist, but God bless the lucky people that get to go to her as a physiotherapist. You understand the distinction? So I hope that it makes some sense. And Vera, hello, St. Louis. She said, I'd love to hear more about handling feelings so much that I get overwhelmed with other people's emotions. So the reason we get overwhelmed with other people's emotions, gorgeous, is because we perceive that it's really, okay, just look and see if this is you. I'm not saying this is you, although I do holographically see, so I can see what's going on. But let's just play so that we're playing with everyone and not just you, because ask yourselves, you guys, for those of you who have been really sensitive or you've called yourself an empath, let's even change the language empathic. What if you're super sensitive? Okay, let's just say, what if you were born with your telomeres, like you're this amazing creator. If you're an amazing creator and you were born to be a unicorn, or a leader, you'll have your telomeres wide open and you'll be like, when you're born, you'll be like, oh my God, I can't wait. This is gonna be so good. And you get all excited about being here on the planet, a little bit shocked by how it isn't what you thought it was. But then people around you start behaving, even when you were little, in ways that are a little bit shocking. It's a little bit affrontive and a little bit like, oh, you get jarred. So it's one of those neurosynaptic highway moments where you get sent off. So now what you make up is, okay, in order that I don't get shocked, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be preemptive. So you make a decision in your mind and you tell your body, I'm going to be preemptive. What I want to do is I want to feel what's going on with everyone around me so that I'm not shocked by events. So I'm going to feel everything so that I'm not shocked, because that feeling of shock is really traumatizing. I don't want to be traumatized anymore. So now your body listens and it says, okay, and you start becoming even more sensitive. And you start picking up on people's feelings and all of these disharmonies around you. And before long, you're overwhelmed because you're not just feeling your feelings, you're feeling everybody's feelings. Do you see what I'm saying? How we shift that, and we will definitely do this and get out of your way to a thriving body. This is one, it's such a great question, Vera, because when you actually make this permanent cellular shift, it is so freeing. But what there's time to share about here is, imagine if you could undo that decision to feel everybody else's stuff. And imagine there was a way to reconcile the decision, whatever decision you made. I'm not saying that's the decision you made, but whatever decision that caused your biochemistry to leave you wide open to feel everybody else's stuff. Oftentimes those kinds of things are because of safety, but me telling you what it is does not change it. Us making a reconciliation that has you understand it differently entirely is, so now we've kind of described why it happens, but understanding why just gives you a really good explanation for how come you get overwhelmed. But it's possible to actually free yourself from that overwhelm. Trust me, being a seer and being a holographic reader, I used to be that way all the time. I had no idea how much I was being pummeled. My sweetie didn't realize how much he was being pummeled. He's like a shaman to his core, and he felt every little thing, everything, unbelievable. And as he's realized how sensitive he is, he just comes back around to putting it all outside of him because of the reconciliations we've done in his, together. So does that make sense to you? Do you understand why we do that? I wouldn't want you, your question was, I want to hear more about handling feeling so much. I am going to reframe your question and say, I would want to know how to free myself from, I would ask a different question. How do I feel just what's necessary to feel? The other part of it that I can see specific to you, Vera, is that you were born to build bridges. And so your wiring already was defaulted for feeling disharmony. And you can still have freedom. You only want to feel the disharmony that you have the capacity to build bridges for, not every disharmony. And that is entirely possible. So I hope that helps. Heather says, what if you had so little safety growing up that it traumatized and splintered a part of you to dissociated to allow for the work of transmuting? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how unsafe your life seemed to be. As you don't have to, okay, so I'm going to say something shocking, Heather, okay? You do not, okay. The ego collective consciousness, so the collection of all humanity's fears, is an entity itself. It doesn't want us to find a way because it doesn't want to die. Every metaphysical idea, every concept, every paradigm, like an ego, lives. It's a living, breathing being. And the ego doesn't want us to find faster and newer ways to be able to transmute the old. So it distracts us and it splinters us and it brings our deepest worries to the forefront just when we're starting to write that book, or just when we're starting to come to get out of your own way, or just when and it's like consciousness is saying, we're testing you. If you really are serious about going the direction of your heart, you're not going to take this fear seriously. So one of those ideas that the ego so insidiously has made up is the idea that you need to transmute all of the trauma from the past so that you can get on with having an amazing life. And if you've had such an unsafe or volatile past, then the idea of transmuting all of that in order that you can be free would keep you in a perpetual loop, because so here's the next piece about our bodies. Our bodies sometimes don't want to go to the most deeply traumatized places, but that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing, because your nervous system often can't handle it. So it's actually your higher consciousness keeping that stuff away from you, which is so perfect. Because do you need to get over your past traumas in order to create inspired futures? No. So our inspired self, and even Get Out of Your Way itself, was co-created from the place of an inspired future that I created, that we didn't have to fix our brokenness in order to fly forward. And then I asked, how the hell do you do that? Because I'm so tired of analyzing the living daylights out of myself. So then all the answers came through, and it came in the form of Get Out of Your Way, which is constantly being evolved, the tools and the exercises to be faster and faster, faster in getting on with this. Now, if we got you to a place that you were flying forward in such a way and you had the tools necessary to do that without fear, I promise you at some point you would notice these starting to float away or disappear, or your higher levels would start to take care of them. some of them would come up because they would serve, because maybe some of the people you're going to talk to are going to be people who have been through exactly what you've been through, and you actually need to see them. But in an inspired future, you will always have the support around you to be able to go through that. Get what I'm saying? So, and then Angelica, can this work if you're married to a malicious, narcissistic sociopath? Well, it won't work on the malicious, narcissistic sociopath. Because if you're that malicious and sociopathic, if your brain has been taken out of, so far taken out of it, the current reality, it is schismed because you've been so hurt by your past, like really schismed. I'm talking about schismed like irreparably. And I'm assuming you're not just being sarcastic here, Angelica. I'm going to take what you're saying at its, face value. If someone is that way, that has nothing to do with your life. Your job is to have that person be irrelevant to you. And then there's the whole conversation around your fear of maybe leaving that person or whatever. But I promise you, in creating a future that you could actually jump into without triggering all your fears, what would happen is you would slowly build bridges to things shifting for you. So my answer is, it works for anybody. There isn't anyone it doesn't work for. It's just a question of iterations. I would say it's more about, if a lot of people, what they do is they don't continue with the work. When you don't continue with the work, you don't get. This is a whole other way of, this is a way of approaching life that sets you free. You can't go, oh, well, I tried it and it didn't work. You do it. You have to, it's a practice. And before long, it just becomes your default. At this point, it's mostly my default, I would say. And the miraculous happens all the time, including my heating guy coming within half an hour of the heat going out. Like, who does that? He's amazing. He had 30 calls today and he came to us. So awesome, right? So Kathy said, once rewired, is it possible to return to constricted state? Well, the problem is the ego can often, yeah, sure, absolutely. You can, if you get really scared, you can revert to some of those neurosynaptic highways. But here's the cool thing, Kathy. The more you practice expanding, the more we give you the tools and the more we show you your innate abilities, the biggest thing being the tools to be able to live in that state, which we didn't talk very much about in the workshop today, but those tools give you the confidence to be able to keep going and not question. However, if something really scares you, for a while, these old neurosynaptic highways, this is something I didn't say in the workshop, for a while, these old certain neurosynaptic highways still live. They still exist in your brain, right? So what happens as you practice your new way with support and with a team around you and all of that, these neurosynaptic highways start to lose energy. And instead of, tree-lined, cobblestoned, beautiful, street lamp lit, gorgeous cobblestone pathways, they start to become crumbly, old, decayed, whatever, and you start not being able to follow them for very long. And sometimes when you go back to that constricted state, it's a good thing, because we have thousands of belief systems, tens of thousands of belief systems that live in us that we don't even know. So one of the reframes and one of the new neurosynaptic highways into deeper understandings is that whenever we have contrast, we tend to constrict. So when you say constricted state, I'm very careful to be aware that you're not talking about that it's wrong to be constricted. When you feel contrast, it's a catalyst for deeper awareness. It's okay to be temporarily constricted in order to feel bad enough that you desire that new awareness. It's just the amount of time you stay in the constricted state, rather than that. We're not designed to be constantly happy and have rainbows coming out our butt. Actually, I should have said that earlier. That's not how human beings, we're creators. You need contrast. So you're going to have it. that it's just the amount of time you stay in the upset about the contrast. If you're even upset at all, you don't even need to be upset about contrast. You could just have contrast and go, wow, I'm really excited now. But how do you make it your default to get really excited about that contrast? So we'll definitely talk about that. So Annette says, if I'm hearing inspired guidance, I'm not aware of it. It's difficult to quite, and okay, I love it. Annette, favorite question so far. It's my favorite question so far. So brilliant. So, by the way, you guys, I'm just going to say it again. Get out of your own way to Thriving Body. I just cannot recommend it more strongly, to be surrounded by a community, to not do it by yourself. If you want to make the shifts, that's what we're here for. And I am so excited to pay it forward to you. And Annette, your comment is making me inspired. The question, if I'm hearing inspired guidance, I'm not aware of it. So, best question ever. Wish I had answered it earlier, but I'll answer it now. You don't have to hear inspired guidance. This is the magic of where we're going to get to, Annette. This is like my favorite thing. It's not about hearing voices or seeing or anything. Guidance is actually so simple that people don't get it. It's actually that it's not, see, our brain wants to make it complicated, that we hear things or that we get signs. Sometimes you get signs, but mostly people misinterpret signs. They get a sign that matches their vibration or that matches the idea that they just made up, wherever they're vibrating. And the problem is, it's not a sign. It's just a validation of your being a dingbat, or a validation of, like, you know when something's a sign because it feels expansive. If it validates a fear, it's because you're vibrating your fear a lot, and it's just reflecting your fears. But how do you know it's not hearing? Consciousness loves you so much. The language of consciousness is so obvious and simple that we miss it. That's the problem. And that's the deeper cut of this program, is that you're going to learn that it's so much simpler than what you thought, that it's not about hearing or seeing, and you don't have to become a guru, and you don't have to live on a mountaintop, and you don't have to do all those things. That life loves us so much that it's in the living with what presents and dancing with what comes in the immediate, which is not the way we live, that you are entirely guided directly by life in a way that is so non-intellectual that you don't even have to think about it. Me saying that, everyone right now, what happens to people when I say that is they try to figure out what I just said, or they're trying to liken it to something else, because that's what the human brain does. It wants to know what the hell I'm talking about. But you have to understand that, you know, when I was guided in an airport to just do exactly what presents, they were trying to show me what I'm talking about right now. The ridiculousness of the amount of flow I got to experience, all the way from meeting the guy who got my seat in business class, having to take a 5-hour flight and sit in the middle in economy because I fly a lot and I'm tall and it's very uncomfortable. Then the guy that got my seat in first class came back, and he did, like, the chances of me sitting beside his friend that he needed to talk to, he said, would you like to go to first class? Because I need to sit beside my friend out of all those hundreds of people on the plane, telling me. And the fact that I had already put my bags in first class while the flight attendant wasn't looking, which you're not allowed to do, that my bags were already there. And the fact that I had said, when I saw the little doggy sitting beside, this woman sitting on the woman's lap in first class and saying, oh, I'd love a dog to sit on my lap. Oh, that'd be so awesome during a flight. That the seat that he gave me for free that I didn't have to pay for was beside the woman with the dog. And as soon as I sat down, the dog jumped in my lap. And I did sit with the dog on my lap with my luggage in first class. That kind of flow is not because I was told to do stuff. It's because I was doing exactly what life was giving me, and they were trying to show me how simple it is when I actually just show up for what's presenting. And a lot of you are like, oh, I sort of get. You don't, until you live it, it's really hard to get. And we're going to do that and get out of your own way. So I hope that assists you, and that to kind of get a sense of that it's not about hearing. And Neil, thanks for your comments. And Beverly, I love you. Can't wait to see you in Mexico. I love that, you guys. I love all your comments. I love reading them. Okay. Donna says, I was told I couldn't read and was not smart enough when I was a child. I fought long and hard. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I feel I'm understanding on a new level. Yes, you are a unicorn, dear Donna. I hope we get to give you a big hug in person. So, so great. And nice to see you here, Sonia, over in Sweden. So great. And you're so welcome, Donna. So I'm going to answer a last question or so. And that's from Elizabeth. And she said, I've never heard you talk about our connection to the earth, the planet itself, and all things that are happening to it due to the ignorance of the arrogance of humanity. Should we be concerned about that, in your opinion? And what can we do about it? Everything that's happening in humanity right now, Elizabeth, if we look at it and we're in judgment of it, you're just adding to the problem. So it's not due to ignorance and arrogance. Those, thank you for sharing that, because it does occur that way. I totally understand it. It's actually due to pain and suffering. So people who choose not to listen to their instincts, it's just because if you take the pain and suffering and safety issues and volatility that we talked about and apply them to, actually, in this case, a lot of men, not all men, but a lot of men who didn't have the space to communicate, they're trying to get their power back. So it really is, it's from pain and suffering. It's from their pain and suffering and trying to get power back. Of course, it doesn't work. But as soon as we judge it as ignorance and arrogance, both women and men can be ignorant and arrogant perceptively. But I promise you that any activity that's outside of heartfelt creativity or co-creative, not from the co-creative spirit, is because of forgetting who we really are. What that takes is a whole group of people to remember, and then creating an environment for those people. I don't mean deliberately, I mean just by doing our own work. You don't have to go out and create these spaces, but by doing our own work, as we remember, we change, remember ourselves and remember our abilities and find our own path to safety and our own path back to being able to be co-creators in this magnificent world. As we remember that, we change the environment in which they live. And as we do that for ourselves, we also retroactively heal our ancestry, and they're free. Part of the urgency you feel to heal, to get on with the reason why you're on the planet, is because your entire ancestry is cheerleading your journey, because they know they'll be set free because you're representing in this, and you're representing them. You're a metaphor for their lives. So as you heal, all of them are healed. And then when they come back into this lifetime, guess what? Their lives are different because you freed yourself. So, so we change everybody by changing ourselves. And I promised Maria that I would answer a question. She said she was studying Buddhism, and there was a practice called Nuyin. And it's to maintain intention, send love and blessings to the earth and all life. Sometimes the practice, and by the way, anyone who talks about planet Earth is the embodiment of fluidity and creativity and doing what presents and living in flow. Every tree is, every plant is, every dog is, every cat is, It's all that. So understand that that's where nature lives. And what we did is we forgot that we're part of nature. We've sort of put ourselves above nature. So when we talk about Earth in that sense, what we're doing in these programs is teaching people how to get back to their quote unquote nature. She said, during one particular fast, I was deeply inspired by what I thought was my inner guidance to offer an authentic movement class. It was so clear and everything came together, but no one registered. My mentor, healer at the time, and another healer as well told me that I was not energetically grounded enough, hence the class could not manifest on the material plane. Minus the details, I felt so sad to have my dreams in my heart not be able to be brought forth. What's crazy is that I began to not trust my inner guidance, Maria. No, your inner knowing was true. All the visions we get are true. But just because we see them doesn't mean they're ready to be had now. Remember how I told you about an inspired future? That's the inspired future that your higher levels gave you. And they gave you that inspired future so that you could actually do that one day. But in order to do that, you have to go through the iterations of remembering the splintered pieces of yourself. We see these visions not because we have to do them right away, or because somehow it's going to prove our worthiness on the planet, or because somehow that's going to be us expressing our piece of the puzzle. We get given these inspired futures such that we can go on the journey of becoming all of that. By the time you get there, you'll be so far beyond doing that workshop that the or better will be presenting. But at the time, you're given an vision of an inspired future that would catalyze you to want to become the person that would be able to deliver that. And what your healers and mentors were trying to say was really that, although it didn't come out quite that way. And your guidance was right on. I think that's a brilliant future to live into that would offer you the obvious next steps. So I hope that assists. All right, guys. I love you all. Thanks for sticking around so long. Just so blessed. Please consider coming to do Thriving Body. I would love to show you all these mechanisms and twists and turns and the different iterations. And I'm so grateful for each of your sharings. And Sonia, thank you for being here and holding the space. Susan, she says, the remembrance of how it feels to be me without the influence of who I am not that had been dictated by others. Exactly. What we want to do is make a permanent cellular shift so this just doesn't become this, oh, I had this amazing conversation and workshop, that we actually get to install this new default such that it becomes a whole new way of living your life. And Mary, you're so welcome for opening some portals. Yay! Annette, love you. And you are so welcome, Maria, and everybody else. Happy birthday, Maria. Yay. And Naomi, there will be a downloadable version of this. What I am going to ask, and Angelica, thank you for your great question around creating new system of so that could be an inspired future for you, Angelica. I know lots of people that are already doing that. I'd love to introduce you. So people are already creating those things because they're being catalyzed the same way you are. So guys, there will be a downloadable link. Absolutely. I don't know if it's downloadable. I'm pretty sure it's downloadable. It'll be on YouTube. Please absolutely spread the word. One of the things that we don't do a lot of is we don't do a lot of pummeling people with stuff. Everything we do is around trusting those same cells in your infinite wisdom, that this journey isn't just about us, but it's about spreading this information forward such that all of humanity can be touched by it. And we consider all of you the Heaven on Earth construction crew. So please assist us in getting the word out about this work and activating the tribe, because it's time for, unicorns to unite. And that we all would come from that life of living through infinite wisdom. So We appreciate every single share, and we're so appreciative of your generosity that way, in running a business in a way that's much more congruent with our hearts. So please do pay the information forward. Sabina, wonderful to see you here. Christina, love you. Jennifer, all of you, everyone who's here. Carrie, and all of the people who I'm who I'm seeing. Neil, Marie, Jeanette, Kathy, big hugs, lots of love, and let's just light up this world together. Okay, again, thewideawakening.com/thriving body. Can't wait to be in those quantum wake-up calls with you, and for many of you to see you in Thriving Body. Big hugs. Bye, y'all.
Thank you for joining us for the Break Free workshop. For more information on Get Out of Your Own Way to a Thriving Body, please visit www.thewideawakening.com/thriving body.